السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى صلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. My most respected elders, our dear brothers, young friends, Jazakallah khair for participating in this important program, which is a development program for each and every one of us, the speaker himself, and all of us who are participating, including the sisters who are listening over the online platforms. And we should make our intention, as Maulana spoke about intention. Nabi Sallallahu has mentioned in the Hadith Sharif that a person who spends a little while seeking knowledge, that is better for that person than the world and whatever it contains. So any opportunity for a believer to seek knowledge, to refresh his knowledge, and to learn something new and to learn something better is really an opportunity that is most precious. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the sitting of ours and make it most beneficial for us and make it a means of our readiness for the challenges in our life and also for getting closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I just want to perhaps invite those who are perhaps sitting a little bit at the back. If anyone wants to come to the front, there's a lot of space here. We'll have a better view. It's always nice to have the front view or the better view. You shouldn't feel shy. You should try and come forward if you'd like to. Jazakallah khair. So Alhamdulillah, my dear respected brothers and elders, the idea generally of marriage, particularly in the minds of young people, is that it's all about roses, and perhaps in today's time it's all about instant gold, if you can say it that way. So people feel and believe that marriage is the magic day, or it's the magic wand, or it's a magic formula that all my troubles in my life and everything I'm undergoing, if I make this nikah, then I will instantly come into a wonderland and into a wonder life. And, I will be this wonderful person in this wonderful relationship with this wonderful spouse of mine. So I don't want to be negative and pessimistic and say that that will not happen or it can't happen. Inshallah, it can happen. But the reality is that marriage does not do that automatically or instantly. Marriage actually is something what we make out of it. And therefore, to have this perception or misconception, perhaps to say, that everything will be instantly turn into gold or everything will become roses once we get married, is sometimes the expectation that actually leads to disappointment. And that's another thing that we're going to speak about in marriage is expectation. People have expectations, and when they get into marriage and their expectations are now unfounded, then that leads to despondency, or it leads to despair, or it leads to a person becoming a bit worried about his direction and the reality of where he has landed himself. So today, Alhamdulillah, Mufti Mahmood has given a broad overview of the framework of marriage. It's important for us to understand legalities, frameworks, right? What the Sharia has set out, what the Quran al-Karim speaks about, etc. And that is basically the broad margin within which we work. We have to keep ourselves within that framework, right? So that's one aspect of marriage which we must know, we must understand. However, beyond that, there is a reality. And I know some of my older seniors here will be able to relate much, much better to what we are going to speak about, and that is the straight talk of marriage. It's nice to skirt around the rosy parts, to talk about the gold and the coffee and this and that. And today's time, it's actually become a bigger reality because of social media. There was one friend of ours. It's actually the name of the person's social media page was, I won't take the person's name, but let's say the person's name was Abdullah. So the person named their social media page the real Abdullah. His social media status was the real Abdullah. So today the challenge is actually to find our reality, that where are we living? Which is our real life? Is the real life the virtual life? Is our real life our life when we are with people, where we are in the masjid, when we are at home? Which is our real life? That has become one of the bigger challenges, or one of the biggest challenges, I would say, today. Anyway, I think I would just like to also introduce that we have, alhamdulillah, some good experts with us today. And I think you should be making notes and and having your questions ready, because we're going to have a nice interactive question and answer session. We've allocated good time for that. We have with us Mufti Mahmood, alhamdulillah, who is in the Darul Ifta of Darul Ihsan, and he will be able to answer all your questions in terms of fatwa. Then we have Dr. Farooq Hafaji, who's a veteran medical expert, many years of experience in various countries, serving the community. And then my brother, Dr. Yusuf Ameer, is a specialist urologist, and he will be perhaps just advising us shortly on some of the more medical aspects that the challenges that we face in marriage. So, alhamdulillah, we have this opportunity, and we can forward our questions. Those who want to ask questions online, that will also be perhaps made available. You can send your questions in through the WhatsApp line. So let's get into our presentation quickly. My presentation is just an informal one, and I think I'm going to leave it open. If anyone got a question, objection, comment, somebody wants to say something, somebody wants to give his own experience on the point, then come forward. You're welcome. We'll allocate you. We'll probably cap your time. We can't give you an hour, but we'll give you a few minutes, inshallah, as long as your input is going to be constructive. So the reality of the matter is that marriage is hard. It's really not easy. It's not a bed of roses. Right? But by the same token, today we find that there's a lot of impatience in the community and in our marriages. And people feel that the escape route is divorce and just to get out of things. So both situations are difficult and hard. And you got to choose what is best for you. You got to choose your heart. In the same way, obesity is hard. It's not easy being obese. And being fit, trying to keep yourself in shape, is also difficult. We know how difficult it is. People go to the gym and they spend so much of time. You come back, you still see the needle on the scale is not moving. Right? So both are hard. So you got to choose. And to communicate effectively, it takes a lot out of a person. It takes a lot of energy to communicate effectively. It's easy to keep quiet. You know, Moa said in a bayan, silence is very important. So tell your wife, now I'm being silent, keeping quiet. But to be silent when you're supposed to speak is not the right thing. Right? So to communicate, you got to apply your mind. You got to think. You got to be resilient. It takes a lot of energy. And not communicating is also hard, because when you stonewall a person, then that creates an internal implosion within a person. When we are being difficult with the next person, it's not like the person is sitting calm, silent. Inside, there is a tsunami taking place, right? We all experience this when we are keeping quiet for the wrong reason. We do not want to communicate. So you got to choose what you need to do at that time, and you got to make the right choice. And the reality also is, we don't learn this from the Quran Sharif. It's a theme in the Quran that life will never be easy. And it perhaps won't always be hard, but the reality is we've got to make the choice that how are we going to adapt ourselves to life's challenges. So therefore, we should pick wisely. There are two words, I think, if we can keep in mind right at the outset, very important in terms of real life situations. Two words. One is accept, and the second is adapt. Once a person gets married, you made a choice, you made the nikah, now you must accept your package. Once you accept your package, you've crossed your 50% of your problems are over. If you're not accepting, you are always going to be objective. No, but it could have been like this. You know, see how she is, or you see how he is. Why can't you be like that? Why can't you be like this? Why can't you do things like her? Why can't you do things like him? Then you're always comparing, because why? There's no acceptance. But if there is acceptance, then you stop comparing and you stop objecting. And then you adapt. And this is where the good part of marriage is. This is where the happiness of marriage lies. When you are able to adapt to your package, you are able to adapt to your reality. And this is what Deenul Islam teaches us, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed our partners. And therefore, we should accept the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our life, and we should make the best of it. Another part of straight talk is that a great marriage is not when the perfect couple come together, but it's when people, through their imperfections, are able to appreciate each other, appreciate their differences. And great marriages don't happen by luck or coincidence. the result of a consistent investment of time, thoughtfulness, forgiveness, prayer, mutual respect, and a rock-solid commitment. I think this word commitment is very important because sometimes the ship of marriage goes well to a certain point in the sea. And then when the waves get bigger and sometimes a storm hits, then it's a test of commitment. So therefore, commitment is something that we should hold on to very, very strongly in the marriage. Now, I just want to quickly gloss over this, that in marriage, the perceptions or the myths, as they would call it. Right? So these are the type of romantic thoughts that people have because our young people are exposed. In those days, it was more novels and things like that. Now, I don't think there's so much of novels. Now it's all about what you see on the screen and how you're influenced by the social media platforms. So the first myth that people think is that they're looking for Mr. Right or looking for Miss Right. There's a nice anecdote about this one man. He was looking for a Miss Right. So he went around and he did all his investigation and his analysis, and he covered the whole spectrum of how to find a woman who is Miss Right. Alhamdulillah, eventually he found someone who was Miss Right, and coincidentally, her surname was also right. So he said, right, now it's all right, right? The name is right and everything is right. But he said after he got married, he didn't realize that her first name was always. So you can imagine, mashallah, that man, his chips will be being fried nice. So the reality is that there's no one who's going to be perfectly right for us. We'll find commonality in most aspects, alhamdulillah, in deen, in the way that we live, in our social living. But anyone out there could be the right person, but it is about the choice that Allah has made for us and the choice that we make. And therefore, every person will come with a different package. And this is where the comparison thing comes in. Sometimes we are very comparative, but the reality is we compare only with what we see. We can't compare with what we don't see. And I read something nice the other day. It says that if all of us could sit around the table and everyone puts our problems onto the table to exchange problems, or to say, you know what, let me take your problems and you take my problems. It is said that we will all walk away with what we put onto the table. What that means is we don't realize the difficulty that others are going in their life. What we see is not what they are undergoing in reality. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, his wisdom and design for us is something that is what is best for us. And that's what we need to deal with and adapt to. And the young people may understand this better only right when it's love at first sight. I don't know how they get this concept, love at first sight. I just saw it. It was like, Wahi finished long time ago. Some people get kashf and ilham and all that. That to half the time is wrong. Then the people talk about dreams and they see dreams, and then when they one is what they dream, and after that, when the dream is over, then is another story. Right. So only when it's love at first sight, then it's right. The first time, the reality is you don't see much. You can't see much. We are insan. Allah has kept us limited. We can't see beyond this wall. Where are we going to see into the life of the person and what's going to happen so far down? Therefore, Sharia gives us certain markers or certain suggestions, certain recommendations, and we work around that framework. And within that, we accept that whatever comes is khair for us, and whatever the challenges are, we embrace it and we make good of it. The third myth is the right person will fulfill my every need. This is important in a relationship. So sometimes we become so possessive in a marriage, right, that we want that person to be everything to us. That person must fulfill our every need. All my happiness, all my work, all my washing, all my this thing, all my this, all my that, my business, everything my partner must be involved in. And I want everything from that person. No. The partner will fulfill your marital needs. We have parents, we have siblings, we have friends, we have community people, and everyone has a role in terms of the relationship that we enjoy with that person. So therefore, don't overstep the mark in a marriage, because what happens is this creates a lot of uncalled for pressure in a marriage. And a human being can only give that much. A human being can only offer that much. And when we push the boundaries, that is when we create fracture. So these are just some concepts and ideas. Maybe it's a little bit digression. It was a matter which we had dealt with. And this is something important for the younger people also, and generally in marriage. So the parties, the husband and wife, become so close that they begin to share a lot of the intimate issues. What happened when they were small, when we were children, how we grew up, and what we did in the past. So you begin to trust the person so much that you tell the person everything, to the extent that things you shouldn't be saying to the person. Because it's not everything is to be said also. So this one couple, the husband and wife, perhaps they were having pillow talk or whatever it was. And so the wife mentioned to the husband, in the past I had one or two relationships with some boys and things like that. And this upset the husband because he was not aware of it. And then he began now probing further that who it was and how many and when and what and why. And this now began to create this friction. And it came to such a point that it was now conflict. And the wife was in a quandary, because now how far back are you going to remember and how much of detail are you going to offer, right? So eventually he told her that if you do not tell me every single thing about every single person that you had a relationship with, then it's divorce. He made the talaq mu'allaq. He made it a condition or a shart. He attached the talaq to her information. Now the quandary that she was in, that she could not remember everything. I mean, human, memory, how much can you remember? And then if you say everything, you're still going to be in a doubt that whether you said everything, or maybe you missed something out, and whether the talaq falls or it doesn't fall. So it became an academic issue, it became a technical issue, and it was really, really, we had to deal with the matter and try to resolve it and warn the husband that, this is not the way that you go about things and things like that. So all this stemmed from being innocently giving information that was no benefit to the relationship. Actually, it caused harm to the relationship. This is a nice little analogy, just for understanding purposes, that many people get married believing a myth that marriage is a beautiful box full of all the things they have longed for. So this is that, what they call it, that Allahumma thinking, that everything is like going to happen the way that we want it to happen. And therefore, everything that I want, I will get instantly when I get married. The truth is that marriage starts off as an empty box. And you got to put into that box what you want to take out from there. That box, that marriage box, comes empty. Although marriage, the boxes come full when they give all the hadiyas and the grapes and unchas, whatever they call it. Right? But those are those boxes. But those boxes don't give you happiness. The box of marriage means what you put into the relationship. And that's why you got to keep on investing in this marriage. Even when you are in happy times, you got to keep on investing and making sure that you infuse the box, or you put things into the marriage, that ultimately when you want to take out something and you want to spend, then it is available. If you take out more that you put in, then the box is also going to get empty. So this is a point to think about. Now we come to an important part of the relationship building. And that is the importance of becoming your best self. Because it's only and only when each individual does the best that they can do and becomes the best person, that is when we'll find the relationship will really blossom. If we're looking at the other person to come right and the other person to do things the way we want them to do it, we're not going to have much success. So this is one of the key recipes, or I can say, if you want to really think about a magic formula, this is probably the magic formula. And sometimes you can turn an entire relationship around by just yourself, just reforming yourself, and you see how the whole situation changes. There's a hadith of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Man aslaha ma baynahu wa bayna Allah, aslaha Allahu ma baynahu wa bayna khalqih. A person who puts right, who sets right what is between him and Allah. Like Mufti Mahmood also explained, that he gave that analogy of the triangle. The closer that a person comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will set right what is between him and the creation, meaning his relationships, his marriage, his family, etc. So once you become the best that you can be, then you now are qualified to be able to inspire and motivate others. You can't be living life according to your own rules and doing things the way you want to, and then you expect others to change, and you expect others to do the right thing. And that is majorly the attitude that we take as men. I know we have our own set of rules, we can do what we want, but everyone else must fall in line. So it doesn't work like that. The way to lead and the way to change is by becoming an inspiration yourself. Most failures in life are character failures, not competency failures. This is so evident today. You'll find a person majored in everything. He'll be a professor, he'll be a specialist, he'll have all the sort of qualifications, or he'll be very highly positioned in terms of his academic ability and things like that. But when you look into the person's personal life, you'll find he's probably got a failed marriage, or he's broken down with relationships. He can't get along with people. People don't really, are inclined towards him. Why? Because that's a character failure. And on the other hand, you'll find a person, he may not be very well qualified or learned or knowledgeable, but if he's got good character, then that propels him, to the top, where people begin to gravitate to that person. In fact, people even begin to look towards that person for inspiration. So character is absolutely important. And that comes from our self-development, which is an incumbent ingredient. The other key, and this is not necessarily for marriage also, but it's across the board in terms of our relationships, that we do not base our relationship based on how people are interacting with us. This is a difficult one. It's quite a difficult one. It's not easy to actually manage this and to establish this. But this is really what is required. That when people are coming at us hard, people are being difficult, people are being unreasonable, people are being antagonistic, right? Especially in a marriage, it's easy to overlook this point in the marriage. So there, you then relate with that person based on your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, again, that comes into the framework. Man aslaha ma baynahu wa bayna Allah. So if a person is conducting themselves with this principle, then no matter how the other person is coming across, this person has got their position, you have positioned yourself correctly. And that will ultimately lead to a better outcome, inshallah. And the greatest service that one can do to oneself, today we all want to serve, we all want to do good. But the best service that we can do to people is to actually better ourselves, because when we all become good as individuals, then there will be less opportunity for conflict and for problems. There's a little anecdote here of one of our pious and senior elders. One of his students came to him and said, Dr. Abdul Haysab, rahmatullah alayhi, was a disciple of Hazrat Ashraf Ali Thanvi, rahmatullah alayhi. He said that I've achieved ihsan in all my ibadah and worship. The presence of Allah is with me when I'm reading salah, when I'm making zikr, when I'm doing all my ibadat. However, the sheikh, who was a spiritual doctor, he wasn't impressed by this person's message or by his letter. And he asked him that, has ihsan permeated all areas of your life? Meaning that when you are speaking with others, when you are at home, when you are in privacy, when you're in communication, has ihsan permeated all those aspects of your life? And that's when the person realized that ihsan is not limited to ibadah. It's not limited to the masjid. It's not limited to my salah. But ihsan and the presence of Allah and consciousness of Allah should permeate every aspect of my life. And actually, the purpose of salah and the purpose of dhikr is for its pure effect to rub off onto our character. And that's why we find that sometimes, a person is making ibadah and we're making ibadah and we're making ibadah. But the person comes out of all of this and there isn't any real effect and impact in his life. What does it mean? It means that the ibadah is not bringing a change in the person. It's not making the impact that it should be having, is not having. Therefore, he has to go back to the drawing board to find what's wrong in his ibadah, that it's not having the desired impact and effect in his life. So the question is, how do we keep it together? This is the challenge that we all face, and this is the challenge of marriage, that no marriage is on autopilot, so to say, that things will just run smoothly and we don't have to put any effort into it. There has to be a concerted effort, and one way to keep it together is to beautify our speech, the way that we communicate, the way that we interact. This is really the key. If we just have to do an assessment of most of the issues that we face in relationships, and particularly in our marriage, it is because of the way we speak. So therefore, marriage is a long conversation, and you've got to be prepared to be able to listen and listen and listen. I mean, those who are married know when you come back home, the thing starts, right? And they got a quota of, I think, a couple of thousand words. Oh, they say men is like maybe about 3,000 to 4,000 or something. They go up to maybe 25, 30,000. So you got to be a very good listener. You got to have a lot of, but that is part of the love and the joy of it. That when you are able to give the hearing, you are able to be a good listener. You are able to, sometimes men have to develop the ability to pretend that you're listening, or don't get caught. What I said, oh, there is no rewind button. After that, you're going to get one too. So the idea is that, you got to be able to be a good listener. You got to be able to converse well. You got to be able to communicate well. And this all takes a lot of patience, tolerance, perseverance, tahammul. This is where the ihsan comes in. That's what we are developing. Salah teaches us patience. Salah teaches us tahammul. Salah teaches us resilience. Right? All of it has to come into a person. It has to be internalized. So the other important aspect of beautiful speech, and I'm going to spend some time on this because this is really the key. If we can unlock the goodness of kalimatun tayyiba, the hadith sharif refers to good speech as kalimatun tayyibatu, pure speech, good speech, talking nicely, softly, gently, well. And it's not like we're not going to shout. Sometimes we are going to lose it. Husband is going to be, fly off the handle. But it cannot become a pattern. It cannot become the norm. It has to be the exception. And the exception has to be, you've got to take lesson from the errors that we made. So if you look at the first sentence there, if you look how language works, language is very powerful. Right? He never stole from me. That's one way to read that sentence. He never stole from me. That gives you a totally different meaning. He never stole from me. It gives you another meaning. He never stole from me. That gives you the third meaning. He never stole from me. That gives you another meaning. And he never stole from me gives you the fifth connotation of that sentence. So you can say, I love you, but depending where your commas are and where you're emphasizing, it can have various meanings, right? So language is very, very powerful, and that is why there's so much of emphasis in the islah of our speech and our communication and our interaction. So a beautiful saying is that raise your words, not your voice. The tendency normally is when we are tested, is for us to raise our voice. It's human nature. But the idea is to give value to words, not to our voice. Another beautiful saying or quotation is that listen to silence because it has so much to say. So there's a lot of benefit in silence when it is at the right time. When you are provoked, when you are agitated and you want to say something, then, and at that time it's good to keep quiet, then use the benefit of silence or see the value of silence because it will say much to the situation. And this one is one that I like, a moment of patience. And everyone can relate to this, really. In a moment of anger, saves one from 1,000 moments of regret. How true this is. There are so many flashbacks that we have, that we've said things which we wish we never said. And we could just reverse everything and go back and redo it or re-say it or reword it. But the reality is that we are the captives of our own words. As long as that word is between your jaws, your statements are between your jaws and they have not left, then you are in control of it. You are the master of it. The moment it leaves your tongue, your mouth, it now makes you its captive. So Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala very beautifully said that many a time, who's saying this? Look at the weight of the statement. The great Umar, I have regretted my speech, but never have I regretted my silence. The great benefit of silence. In the life of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there used to be tulus sukut. Tulus sukut means there used to be lengthy periods of silence. Because silence gives a person an opportunity to reflect, to make muhasabah, to rethink, to revise, to reword. All of these things are drawn through silence. If a person is continuously speaking and speaking at every opportunity that he has, he doesn't really have time to reflect. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to make sukoot for long periods to be able to enliven his soul. Zaban ban kar lo, dil khul jayega. In Urdu, there is a saying that if you keep silent, you close your mouth for a while, your heart will open, the realities of the heart. And another quotation that I picked up was, if people could drink their words, they would realize how bitter it tastes. Really, the words that we speak have a bitter taste, and that is the taste that goes down the person who these words are actually aimed at or targeted at. That's how they feel. They feel very bitter about it. And we find that this becomes the breakdown of relationships in so many instances, a marriage, sometimes it's family relationships. There are so many harmful effects and impacts that this has because of people not being able to guard their speech. Okay, so another, sorry, I maybe just want to pause here for a moment. Is everyone okay? Anyone wants to say anything? I know I've been emphasizing on silence, but maybe now is the time to speak. Someone wants to make any input here or ask anything? Okay, so everybody's online. So another very important key, and I would say this is a magical formula, if you want to call it, is the power of forgiveness. Wallahi al-Azim, this is something really, a person who develops this is the most happiest person. Because what happens is, you have a light back and you have a light stomach. Everything is light. When you forgive, you're out of it. You don't regret anything. You don't carry baggage and burden with you. You move on. Fa'fu wasfahu. Quran Sharif speaks about overlooking and forgiving and moving on. The moment we hold a burden with us, there's an example that they give of a glass of water. If you hold a glass of water, you hold it for 1 minute, it won't be difficult. You hold it for 10 minutes, you'll begin to start feeling the weight of the glass. And if you hold it for an hour, then it will become challenging. Now that very same glass which you were holding without any difficulty, to hold it for an hour like this is now becoming a challenge. So this is the example of burdens that we carry, or I won't say burdens that we carry, but baggage that we bring into our lives. We keep on bringing baggage. That baggage may be something small, maybe something that we just told a person, or we may have just had a little bit of a word with someone or something, but we didn't clear it up. But that remains with us, and that burden gets heavier and heavier and heavier. So the power of forgiveness is something that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has mentioned in the Hadith Sharif, that ighfir, make the habit, develop the quality, the ability, the power of forgiving. Yughfar lak. Allah will forgive you. You will be forgiven. You will become a person who is easily forgiven because you forgive. Allah make us people of forgiveness. So in English, there's a nice saying about live and let live. This is also a very good quality. That to have conflict, to have an argument, to have differences is not a problem. It's part of life. In fact, the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum had many differences among them. They differed on major masail, on major aspects of deen. But those differences never let them break down their ties. It never broke down their relationship. If anything, it brought them closer together. And we saw this also in our pious predecessors in our akabir, that they used to have debates, discussions, they used to differ on issues, and it was something that was common. It wasn't something that they shied away from. If I have an opinion and it's a valid opinion, and you have an opinion, it's a valid opinion, it's fine. Islam gives room for it. It's allowed. In the home, if you want to do something one way and somebody wants to do something another way, it's fine. Allow it. Don't let it become a point of conflict that brings about breakdown. And then in the Hadith Sharif, it is mentioned that the honor of a person who forgives is increased. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives honor to the one who forgives. The Hadith Sharif also speaks a lot about letting go and forgiveness. There are many hadith that allude to this subject matter. And there is one beautiful hadith. And this is something which I would say I use as an opportunity to gain something. And I will share this with you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq for it. That when you are at a point of conflict or difference with someone, right? Assess the situation. By letting go that argument, what will you lose? And by holding on to it and pressing yourself forward and your advantage, even though you are right, what will you achieve? The most you may achieve is that ultimately you were right. More than that, you're not going to achieve anything. The Hadith Sharif says a person who is right in an argument, you are right, but you let it go so that it does not turn into a dispute and a breakdown of ties. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a person a palace in Jannah. So it's a simple, easy way to attain this great reward. Again, the power of speech. Look at this English professor. I'll just leave that for you all to read. So you can see how the minds of men are wired and the women are wired. Right, so therefore, speech is major, and that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed emphasis of it on in the Quran Al-Kareem also, that the speech of man will be taken to task on the day of Qiyamah. There's one anecdote there at the bottom. A father asked his son to say, I'm sorry for no reason. So this one youngster was getting married. The father wanted to teach him a nice lesson in marriage. So he told him, son, say you're sorry. So the son said, Dad, what did I do? He said, I'm asking you to say you're sorry. They said, but if you tell me what I did wrong, then I know what I did, so I'll say sorry. So the father said, say you're sorry. So the son realized now that the father is impressing upon him, so he gave in and he said, Dad, I'm sorry. So he said, now you're ready to get married because you say sorry for not knowing what you did or for no reason. Once you learn that, then you can get married. I think we all know what we're talking about. Just say sorry. But say it in a nice way. If you say sorry in a wrong punctuation also, then that sorry means something else. Acha. Keeping it together with forgiveness is a beautiful hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this power of forgiveness and reconciliation between people is even better than extra fasting, salah, charity, and all those good acts that we place so much of emphasis on and that cost us so much. We can attain all of this by bringing about harmony in relationships. And when these relationships are spoiled, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that it is like a razor. What does it erase or what does it raise? It raises the deen of a person. It spoils the character of a person. It spoils the amal of a person. It corrupts the inner of a person. So therefore, this breaking down of relationships and ties is something which is very serious in our deen. Humility, I'm just going to go through these slides very quickly. The other important aspect of a blissful marriage and keeping things together is the aspect of tawazu. And these are, we can say, universal maxims. You know, you don't have to go through a 500-page manual of how to get a happy marriage. You just have to get a good understanding and grasp of these powerful concepts of forgiveness, of speech, of humility, of tawadu, and you will find that a lot can be achieved through these universal maxims. All our spiritual progress is dependent on humility. The first thing that the spiritual doctor teaches the disciple is the aspect of tawadu. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam instilled this in the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, man tawada'a lillah, rafa'ahu Allah. This is another important aspect as far as relationship is concerned, that the success of a relationship has less to do with compatibility. Normally, compatibility is something that is sought after. But we know that they exist for incompatibility in relationships. So therefore, it has less to do with compatibility than the way that we deal with incompatibility. And then we have the aspect of garments. There's an ayah in the Quran Sharif, Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has likened the spouses to be garments to each other. And there's so much of explanation behind this. We won't go into it. What the garments do for a person. Garments protect us. Garments give a person honor and izzah. Garment gives a person privacy, etc. But sometimes a garment is not the best fit. Sometimes a garment is not the best shade or whatever it may be. But it doesn't stop doing what it's supposed to do. So therefore, in spouses, we have deficiencies. We disagree with each other. But it doesn't mean we're supposed to stop doing what we're supposed to do as spouses. We don't strike in a marriage. We don't boycott in a marriage. We don't toy in a marriage. South Africa, we know those terms. Only if there's load shedding, then we have to. MashaAllah. Abu Dharr Ghifari radiallahu ta'ala was known better in the heavens than the earth by virtue of which quality? On one occasion, Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam was coming down and he saw Hazrat Abu Dharr Ghifari radiallahu anhu. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Ya Rasulullah, hada Abu Dharr. Abu Dharr. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, is he known by the people in the heavens also? That yes, he's known better in the heavens than on earth. Subhanallah. By virtue of what? لِصِغْرِهِ فِي نَفْسِهِ. Because of his humility. Because of him regarding himself to be unworthy, insignificant, and small. That is why the people in the heavens recognize him. And لِكَسْرَةِ تِلَاوَةِ قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ. And because he recites قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ very often. There were some Sahaba who used to read قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ in almost every rakat of Salah. So the recitation of قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٍ is also very powerful. Right? Okay, there's a little bit there on expectations. That's another big subject, a talking point in marriage, and we spoke about it a little bit, that when we lower our expectations and our expectations are met, then we will be happy. If we have very high expectations and expectations are not met, it's going to lead to sourness. Right? Here again, we find that another important maxim in marriage is avoiding conflict is conflict. This is a very important point. We find with a lot of the situations we deal with, we say, no, I don't want to cause a fight. We don't talk about it. Sweep it under the carpet. Try to avoid it. Avoiding conflict is conflict because the problem is not going to go away. It's actually going to get worse. So the idea is to address conflict, but to address it and approach it in the correct manner. Right? So healthy adults talk about their problems and they look for solutions. They don't look for problems. Discussion is an exchange of thoughts and knowledge. Promote it. Arguments an exchange of ego and emotions. Avoid it. These are all principles of discussion. And also when a person is hurt, he communicates with compassion. Although you are affected, you're afflicted, but that doesn't give you or shouldn't be the cause of a person becoming bitter and antagonistic and confrontational. And understand that no connection will last if people hold their anger. Right? As I said, speaking about holding the burdens and carrying the burdens. Anger is something that we should explain, not express. And also in a marriage, do not be reactive, rather be responsive. Respond in a marriage, don't react. A lot of times our approach is one of reaction. This is a little exercise for everyone here. Let's see how good you are in reading English. So we got the answer. Just ignore the mistakes and understand everything. Right? The problem is solved. And this is the reality, that there are going to be errors, deficiencies, weaknesses, mistakes all the time. But the way we look at it will be the outcome that we will get. This one here is just a little bit on the lighter side because in South Africa, electricity is such an important thing nowadays. But alhamdulillah, 50 days, no load shedding. Hope inshallah it can carry on after elections also. So if you handle them with care, inshallah, they'll light up your life. But if you don't, then you must know the sparks will fly. And this I heard from one of our senior ulama and ustads, mentioned it in one of the nikah bayans that stuck with me, that if you get them on your right side, they'll move a mountain for you. That's a reality. But on the wrong side, then you won't get them to move a spoon also. I think many of us are experienced with that. Acha, we have come to the end of this particular presentation. If there's anybody wants to make any quick input before we hand over to our next presenter, you're welcome to. Or any comments, inshallah. Ji, Salaam. Salaam.
If you look at the divorce rates in the Muslim community across South Africa, it has risen quite substantially in the last 10 or 15 years.
Yes.
And workshops like this are very important, especially to help them navigate
Yes.
going to marriage. And you still see a large fragmentation of youngsters not married in the last 2 months, 3 months,
Yes.
6 months or years. How can you find a solution for those marriages that break up? Because at first they don't want to for years from campus, university. After they get married.
A very important point raised by the brother is that the rate of divorce in our community is very high. We have published an article which is available on our website, the Darul Ihsan website, called Proliferation of Divorces. And really, that is what it is. We have a proliferation of divorces in our community. We've got to ask ourselves, what are the causes, what are the reasons, and what's happening? I think very quickly to answer your question, one of the real issues is education and our interest in wanting to know what the realities of marriage are. I mean, have a marriage program and see the interest levels, right? So education is very important. In Malaysia, you can't go for a proposal for a girl if you don't have a certificate where you have gone through a complete course on marriage. You have, like how for Hajj, you have to go through an entire program of how Hajj. It's only when you pass the exam, then they give you a certificate, and then you can go for Hajj. Like that, marriage also, it is curriculized, that you have to go through a curriculum of how to conduct yourself in a marriage. And they'll ask you, when you come for proposal, they ask you for your certificate first. No certificate, then they'll send you out first out the door. So I think there has to be some effort, a concerted effort for us to see how we can integrate this thing into our programs, into our communities more effectively, because really lots of the issues are coming up because of a lack of understanding, education, ignorance. It's just people think that they know it all, and really when they face the challenges, then it's sometimes too late. So Jazakallah, that's a very important observation.
Maybe it's important that you might have this topic on realizing the importance of marriage and what to do before you get married.
Gee, that's also a good point, to have Jummah talks, etc. But a Jummah audience is a good audience, but again, the time is very limited. I think the subject matter of marriage is vast and it's broad, and it's a journey. I mean, we learn even in marriage, we continue learning. So it's a good starting point, the Jummah talks. And I think from time to time, the ulama do speak on it. Maybe it should be done more often or more widespread. But then we also have the nikahs, talks are given, and we have these type of programs. But I think a lot more needs to take place, and we've got to create maybe some type of an environment of reading and studying and research as far as this matter is concerned, and more practical ways in which our younger people can learn the dynamics of marriage. Jazakallah for that.
And maybe also to have marriage contracts. So when the person gets married, make sure he does the marriage contract with this understanding of what is expected.
Very valid point, important point. In fact, at Darul Ihsan, we do provide prenuptial marriage contracts. It's an important part because a lot of things are already known, they are unspoken, but the better way to do it is to clarify, to give it clarity through a prenuptial agreement. And I think in some countries, it's actually mandatory that they do prenuptial contracts before you get married. So Islam teaches us the concept of contracts, so people know where they stand and how you position yourselves. The aspect of trust is important, it's there, but today we know trust is something that really it's not upheld as it should be in our community and society. Jay. Marriage workshops compulsory. Gee, it's quite a big ask. Until you don't attend a marriage workshop, you can't get married. We'll have to work out a way to do that. Yeah, I think. Look, it should be sort of it should be an imperative that people should understand that you need it for yourself. It's important. It's something that we should create a culture for. Jazakallah for that input. Jay.
Resolution via WhatsApp rather than face-to-face communication. Commenting.
Yes, correct. Today everything is on WhatsApp, so the husband and wife also they're probably sitting across each other in the lounge, but she's sending him a shopping list from her phone to his phone. Her husband receives it, and now the fight already started because they're already objecting on the WhatsApp. So there was one couple. Husband was a bit bored, so he was in the games room and he was playing darts. You get these dart boards. So he had a picture of his wife on the dart board there, and he's just amusing himself. And every time he hit that thing, he missed his target. The wife was sewing in a sewing room and she's doing her work there. So after a while, she decided to message him. So she said, "Honey, how are you? What are you doing at the moment?" He said, "I'm missing." So he wasn't wrong. He was missing the target on the dartboard. Anyway, so Jazakallah for that. That's another, I think we'll need another whole afternoon, because the amount of trouble and problems and arguments and things that happen on WhatsApp, it's like, it's crazy, really crazy. Not only on WhatsApp, I mean, people have this way of, they call it cyber war. You get cyber abuse, you get cyber widows, everything is cyber now. So you get cyber war where now the husband and wife are separated. We're not talking to each other. They haven't phoned each other for the last few months. But if you go to the status, you'll find all the answers there. What the wife wants to tell the husband is on her status. And the words there, these things there will be like, really heavy stuff. So if you want to know the toxicity of that relationship, you just go and see what they're putting on social media. You'll know what's happening. You know everything what's happening actually. So yeah, quite serious. And all this again comes down to the way that we are using social media, our involvement with it. That's the real another world on its own. But these are the challenges these are new challenges that are coming. Maybe perhaps our parents and those in the past didn't have these challenges. They used to send telegram. By the time that telegram reaches the APA, she already made her mind that she's coming back. She got her bags packed already. So, in today's time, it's so fast that it doesn't give room for people to actually heal and things like that. Yeah. Okay, Jazakallah khair for your attention. We'll continue taking your input and your questions. You can at any time, inshallah, raise your hand and you can field your question. Jazakallah khair. I really appreciate the opportunity. Allah accept everyone. Barakallahu feek. And those who are going to get married, may Allah give you a very blissful, happy marriage, inshallah. And we hope that you will take this forward and perhaps even share it with others so that they may also benefit. Jazakallah wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.